So the next speaker that we're going to have is IDefine's new Chief Scientific Officer. So we had just announced it this week. I am beyond excited to have Eric Scheeff join us in this capacity. Eric has been instrumental from the start. So he was one of the co-founders, has been helping all along, but now has a more focused opportunity where he's going to be contributing to the organization day to day. Eric and I speak all throughout the week, every single week, and it's going to take that sort of intensive effort to be able to really push forward our research efforts. So with that, Eric, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Can everyone see my slides?
We can.
Great. All right. Yeah, so I'm going to give an update of kind of where we stand as IDefine from a scientific perspective at this point. And I will just briefly touch upon what Jeff mentioned, which is I've decided to come aboard and make this the focus of my career. So I'm really excited to do that. Maybe I'm even more excited than Jeff is about having me. And as he said, I've been working on this project ever since we founded the organization, but it was really becoming clear there's so much happening in this space. It's incredibly exciting. There's so many opportunities. And we could see that there needed to be someone to chase down a lot of these opportunities in the scientific space. And so I'm going to be focusing on that. Just super quick introduction about me and kind of where I'm coming from. So I did a PhD at UC San Diego. I did research for years. I then I've done a lot of work kind of in the business world where a lot of my customers were, pharma and drug developers. Most recently, I was at Illumina, which is the kind of the world leader in genomics. If your Kleefstra family member got their diagnosis by sequencing, I pretty much guarantee it was done on Illumina equipment. So I've been very close to this space, and now I'm going to dive in kind of 100%. And of course, the most important thing of all, in terms of, I think, my qualifications to start working more deeply on this project, is that one of my kids has Kleefstra syndrome. So this is incredibly personal for me, and something I'm really dedicated and excited about. So what I'll be doing for the organization is, well, whatever the organization needs, in short, but a few specifics. I'll be really diving deep and working on building up our research program. So we're really excited about, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, making some sort of targeted investments to push the field forward. Making sure that we have a seat at the table within the scientific community, and that our disorder is well known. Making sure that we're seen at the rare disease conferences, that it's clear that we're out there, and that we want to work with everybody, and we want to plug into the community. And then wherever possible, adding resources. That may mean writing grants, that may mean helping others write grants, that may mean making sure that we're connected to researchers who want to do collaborative work that involves grants, right? So finding ways to bring more resources into our community whenever possible. And then, much more, whatever's needed. In terms of the scientific update, I wanted to start first by just kind of introducing our SAB, our Scientific Advisory Board. So incredibly excited to have all these folks here. Obviously, Dr. Kleefstra needs no introduction. Neil spoke earlier at the conference today, so you've already heard from him. Paul, you've probably heard about Paul before, but if you haven't, so Paul is also a Kleefstra parent, and there he is with his cute little son. And most wonderfully, Paul is a drug developer by trade, so fantastic to have someone like that help us. Allison is one of the world's experts on model systems, cell models, organoid models, etc. And so really happy to have his help as we go forward. Scott is one of the world's experts on ASO technology, which is a really new, exciting technology that I won't get into deeply, but allows us to modulate gene activity. And obviously, that's something of interest to us in terms of that we have a gene that we would like to modulate and control the activity of, since all of our kids don't get quite enough dosage of it. And he was part of the team that got the Angelman's community to a clinical trial, which is, of course, where we want to get. So he's been through the whole arc, right, from the beginning to getting all the way to a trial. And then Stephen Gray is one of the world's experts in gene therapy. So you can see kind of, we've got somebody kind of checking all the boxes for the team. And I just want to say thank you to all these folks. They've already given us so much help and so much feedback and so much information. And looking forward to all the other work we'll do together. So So I think we as an organization, we have a lot of goals, right? And part of that is the community, part of that is the clinical, but a big part of it too is, for us, the scientific goal is that when we want to stay laser focused on this, is that what we want to deliver is an effective targeted treatment for Kleefstra syndrome. And Jeff kind of mentioned that earlier, that thank goodness for olanzapine, right? And for other drugs that are used to help our kids. But those drugs are not targeted. Those are drugs that already have existed in the field and are being used for the symptoms. So we want to work to find a treatment that is actually targeting the disorder itself. And I think there really are two big pillars to our strategy. And we've learned this from talking to lots and lots of people, that what you need to do to make this happen, right? So there's two big things we want to make sure we do. And one of them is really, you need to make the path more attractive for people who are drug developers. And you need to do that by what they call de-risking it. So what that means is making sure that all the pieces are in place. So if you are interested in developing a drug for this disorder, there's nothing that's really blocking you, right? And I'll get into that in a little more depth. And then also we want to make sure that we travel that path ourselves. We don't want to sit around and wait and say, great, everything's sitting here, so someone come along, right? We want to do that work. And so make targeted investments as an organization to develop and validate early treatment candidates. And those two pieces together, I think, can get us on the right path. And so I want to talk a little bit about that path and what that path looks like. It's a long path, and what you want at the end, right, is an FDA approved treatment. That's ultimately your goal. But there's a lot that goes into that, and it involves really, the whole community working together. And I'll get into that a little bit. So the first piece of that is building up those research assets, right? So we are in the wonderful position as a community that we already have a lot of excellent research that's been done, and you've heard about some of that today, that there's a lot of information on the disease. And you heard from Joost, who's building up some natural history data. We're going to hear later today about more information on what patients are out there, where they are, et cetera. And then I talked a little bit about, you've heard talked about, I should say, earlier today, a lot of work in model systems. So one area we're very interested in is making sure that all the model systems that are needed are out there. And if they're not out there, then we'll make sure that they're created. Because it takes time to create model systems. It's not like you just snap your finger and you have them, but those are important for screening drug candidates, et cetera. And then making sure we are, as a community, developing biomarkers, because ultimately when you get to a clinical trial, you have to decide how you're going to determine if your treatment worked. And that involves biomarkers, natural history information, et cetera. And then we have to get through kind of preclinical research, which is, selecting a candidate approach, right? So that can be drug repurposing, that could be ASO, et cetera. You have to design and manufacture. You have to test those in your models, and then you have to get through safety and toxicology to make sure that that's safe before you can put that into a person. And then you have to go through a clinical trial, which is where you need to select endpoints. And endpoints just means these are the things that we're going to look at, and we're going to say ahead of time, if X changes in to this degree, we're going to have said we're successful. And those can be behavioral, those can be biomarkers, right? So that could be EEG readouts, it could be all kinds of things. We have to develop those. You have to be able to find your patients, right? Which is why it's important for us to know where the patients are, how many there are, where they live, et cetera. You have to pick out your sites. And then you'll go through phases, and then eventually you submit this to the FDA, and then hopefully you get approved, and then you have your first treatment. And so all of these pieces have to come together, and they have to come together on the right timing. You don't want to get everything lined up, and then at the last minute you realize, well, we don't really know where the patients are, right? So we can't do a clinical trial. And when we talk to drug developers, they grill us, right? Like, well, do you know where the patients are? How many are there? Do you know what endpoints we should use? Are there well-developed endpoints? And so we need to get all of these pieces in place. And then that makes the disorder more attractive for development. And obviously puts us in a position as a community to also do our own walking of the path, as I was saying, and coming up with our own candidates. And because of these have to be, we have to sequence these in time, we're trying to think about this holistically and then work our way backwards, right? We want to get an approved treatment. And so we're going to step backwards through this and say, well, when do all these things have to be ready, and help coordinate the community towards that happening. The other thing I wanted to point out on this slide is that you'll see the little stars on some of these. So all of those are parts where the broader community, and so just kind of a shout out to the community on this call, can make a huge difference, right? So, being involved in providing natural history data, right, for example, and patient information makes a huge difference because it allows the community to understand how they should think about what endpoints there might be for a clinical trial in the future. And so I wanted to kind of end by, talking about that, the ways that the community can help, because it really will take the whole community pulling together, both the researchers and the patient community, to get us to where I think we all want to be. So make sure you participate in these data collection efforts like Allstripes, RareX, and Genida, and you'll hear about more about those later. I'm stealing Jeff's thunder here, but he's going to talk a little bit more about we're building a new patient locator that will allow everyone to put their information in, and so we can track exactly where everybody is, their ages, et cetera. And then that puts us in a position to go to drug developers and say, look, we know we've already got all the patients, right? We've been told by one that you've got to get to 500. 500 is the number, like the magic number. And once you have 500, then they see it as viable, as something for them to chase. If the community has already been great, I should say also about answering these calls already. Like, we had fantastic, response to the Allstripes call specifically. So please keep it up and keep providing more of that information. If there's a need for people to participate for biomarkers or provide samples for models, please answer that call. Help make us more visible. We need to stand out. We need to be a visible disorder. We need to be seen as an exciting place to work. And we've already got this great community, but if we can get even more people interested and expand the community even further, it can't ever hurt, right? So forward things on LinkedIn, retweet our tweets, et cetera. And then, work to expand that network, both make sure, you make sure that you help other people who have Kleefstra syndrome family members get involved. Everyone knows somebody, right? So if you feel like you know somebody who could help our community, then please reach out, and we'll be happy to engage. So we're really excited about what's to come. We expect to make some investments in the coming year that I think will really be exciting and really help push our field forward. And so stay tuned, and really great to talk to all of you.